Briefing devoted to weekly updates from the OSCE SMM. Alexander Hug, First Deputy Chief Monitor of the OSCE Special Monitoring Mission to Ukraine, is at the microphone.
Good afternoon, dear friends. Over the last week, the number of ceasefire violations in Donetsk region remained largely unchanged compared to the previous week, with almost 1,800 explosions recorded there. Since the weekend, however, there has been a spike in violence. We recorded over 500 explosions on Sunday alone. In Luhansk region, the OSCE Special Monitoring Mission recorded double the number of explosions compared to the previous week. After a week of relative calm, nighttime shelling resumed in areas around Stanica Luhanska Bridge on Wednesday, continuing for 3 straight nights. Also of particular concern is the situation in the neighboring villages of government-controlled Lobacheve and so-called LPR-controlled Shofte, approximately 16 kilometers northwest of Luhansk. You can see them here on the map on the screens. And as you can see here, both villages face each other across the Sievsky Donetsk River, just a few hundred meters apart from each other, and only a few meters there separate the sites. Such proximity allows for verbal and small arms fire exchanges there between the sites, followed, as we have seen this week, by the use of heavier caliber weapons. Lobacheve and Shofte have until recently been very quiet. Both villages there and that situation provides a telling example of what can happen when there is insufficient distances separating the sites. Also varying this week was the use of multiple launch rocket systems. Crater analysis conducted by the SMM showed that they had been fired at the government-controlled towns of Bohdanivka and Mikhailivka, both in the Donetsk region. Aerial surveillance imagery available to the SMM actually revealed the presence of 47 multiple launch rocket systems in so-called LPR-controlled Myunisk last Friday. There were just some of the proscribed weapons observed by the SMM in violation of respective withdrawal lines on both sides of the contact line. The number observed did in fact almost double compared to the previous week. Now, dear friends, you know as I do, weapons are used to kill and injure. And again, we have seen much of this. In government-controlled Marinka and the neighboring so-called DPR-controlled Petrovsky district of Donetsk city, heavy weapons and those firing them have made no distinctions between civilians and combatants. Our monitors confirmed that 3 men had been killed and a 16-year-old girl injured in shelling on 3 separate days last week in the Petrovsky district. We also learned that 3 of their neighbors in Marinka, a woman and 2 boys aged 8 and 13, had suffered shrapnel injuries on 2 different days. And I invite now the next map on the screen, please. As you can see from this map here, showing the locations of the shelling incidents I have just referred to, these people are indeed neighbors across the contact line. The only thing they divide at R by is a artificial line there, the so-called contact line. Now on the following pictures, taken by our monitors, you see the common destruction people on both sides of that line face. The line might divide them, but they are united by their common suffering that you can see here on these pictures. Now, dear friends, I'm conscious that today marks the World Humanitarian Day. It reminds us that there are good people trying to alleviate the suffering caused by this conflict. All across Donbass, we see humanitarian workers and volunteers placing themselves in harm's way. They bandage the wounds, they feed the hungry, and rebuild homes and essential civilian infrastructure. I have great respect for such people, and we in the SMM do in fact try to help them to do their work, facilitating access and localized windows of silence. But ultimately,
Але в кінцевому результаті, якщо повинно припинитися страждання, це означає, що повинна припинитися і боротьба. Але це не є неможливим. Я знаю свого власного досвіду минулого тижня в Донбасі, що сторони спроможні припинити порушення. Я бачив
at the water filtration plant in Yasinovata, there for 6 hours and even a bit more, an almost complete calm prevailed. On next map, please. Thank you. Here you can see the plant circled in the middle of that triangle there, located right next to the contact line. It is also right in the middle of what is undoubtedly the worst affected area in the entire Donbass at the moment. It sits in the middle of the Yasinovata, Avdiivka, Donetsk airport triangle. On Sunday, our monitors in Yasinovata recorded 184 explosions there. You will also note on this map the urban areas colored in red. The contact line, where most of this violence erupts, snakes its way through these areas, threatening people going about their ordinary lives there. This violence also threatens the operation of that plant, which supplies water to 400,000 people on both sides of the contact line. Workers living in nearby government-controlled areas face huge difficulties in getting to work. Direct roads to and from work are blocked, not to mention the ever-present danger of getting caught up in the violence. Now, dear friends, so what is the reason for the failure of the sides to cease fire? As my experience in Yasinovata last week shows, there clearly is some command of control. Given that the sides have agreed in Minsk to cease fire, I must also assume there is some political will to do so. I think it should be obvious that after 2.5 years of bloodshed and betrayal, there is no trust between the sides. It is that lack of trust that makes it impossible to do what is required to sustain long-term cessation of violence. Trust is required if the sides are to withdraw their weapons and to separate their forces. Without trust, each side fears the vacuum will be filled by the other. And this, dear friends, is of course where the OSCE Special Monitoring Mission comes in. Through our monitoring, we can verify compliance. We can reassure each side that the other is complying. We can document that weapons have been removed. We can demonstrate that the sides have separated. We can monitor and report objectively, but we need access. And quite frankly, that is not happening. Let's be clear, it's not happening primarily because the sites don't allow access. The sites prevent our monitors from accessing certain areas. The sites shoot at our unmanned aerial vehicles. The sites plant landmines and obstacles, preventing our patrols from moving forward. The sites threaten and intimidate our unarmed civilian monitors. Dear friends, nobody ever said this process is going to be easy. In fact, there was recognition that there would be problems along the way. And it was for this very reason that the Joint Center for Control and Coordination was set up. The JCCC is made up of Russian and Ukrainian officers and 2 generals, 1 from each country. They have been tasked by the Minsk Addendum of September 2015, among many other things, to facilitate access for the SMM. They have in fact been tasked to do so by their respective representatives in the Trilateral Contact Group and by Mr. Sakarchenko and Mr. Plotnitsky. The Joint Center for Control and Coordination, through coordinating and facilitation, must ensure that the roads are open, that the landmines are cleared, and that obstacles are removed, that there are no threats against the SMM monitors, and that our unmanned aerial vehicles are not shot down. Let me be clear here though, the 2 generals are not responsible for removing the mines themselves, but they are responsible for ensuring that the so-called LPR and so-called DPR and the Ukraine armed forces do so. It pains me to say this, but the JCCC has not lived up to its potential. The JCCC needs your support and your attention. The fact is, unfettered and unhindered access for the SMM does not exist. And once again, without it, there can be no verification or trust. So long as there is no trust, there will be no peace. As usual, at the end of my statement here, I would like to inform you about the latest mission numbers. As of today, the mission has 706 monitors, of whom 578 are deployed to the east. In addition, there are 306 Ukrainian colleagues and 90 other international staff working for the OSCE Special Monitoring Mission. Thank you for your attention, and I see you next week.
Thank you, Mr. Hook. Чи є запитання у журналістів?
Any questions?
So, clarifications? If none, we're gonna end our press briefing. На цьому ми завершимо наш прес-брифінг. Дякую.
Thank you.